morning, everybody, and welcome to Indie Interactive, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. My name is Bree Noble, and I am so excited to be with you this morning. I've got a friend with me this morning, and boy, did we have tech issues getting ready for this. So we're sorry we're a little bit late this morning, but this is someone who works on my team, Beth Matthew, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and why I have her on here, but it's actually kind of fun reason. She's going to be interviewing me. So we kind of had a conversation a little while back about, frustration as an artist, feeling very like you have a lot of mental blocks and self-confidence issues and fears. And, I certainly went through a lot of that in the beginning, and I know Beth would be willing to say that she's been through her share of that, and I know all of you have been through it, whether you're in it right now or you've pushed through that. But I think we always have that a little bit in the background, these self-confidence issues, these feeling like, who am I to book myself? Who am I to ask somebody to put me on their stage? So that's going to come out a little bit this morning in the fact that Beth is going to interview me and kind of ask me some questions about my experience as an artist. I thought it would be kind of fun to do it in this format. I see many of you guys are showing up. Thank you so much. Thanks for waiting an extra 5 minutes since we're a little bit late. But as we're going through this and as I'm answering some questions that she has, if you have any questions that come up, or if anything I say really resonates with you, I'd really appreciate it if you would put that in the chat, and if you would maybe give us some hearts and that kind of stuff. And if you know any other musicians that you think are really struggling right now with that confidence, that what I like to call imposter syndrome, where we're like, how I'm not good enough. Like, I look at every other artist and I'm not on their level. If that is you and you know somebody that's going through that, tag them, share this with them. And I know they'll appreciate it, and I would really appreciate it as well. So a little bit about Beth. Beth started working on my team, I think back in February of this year, and she's done a variety of things. She does some research for me. She works with some of the, she helps with the review board on the Women of Substance team. And most importantly, she's the community manager for the female indie musician community. And I know many of you are in that community. She's also a member of the Female Musician Academy, which is how we met to begin with. So she has, I've had her on here before. She has a fantastic CD. She kind of came into her artistdom, into her really into her own as an artist, and getting her music out there later in life, like many of us. I mean, I was 33, and many people say that that's late. Some of us, some people I know are just getting into the artist realm when they're in their 40s and 50s, and I think that's awesome. There is a market for all of you guys. So just to tell you that that's kind of where she comes from, and she, she's raised her family, and just as I have, while doing this artist journey. And so that's kind of where these questions are going to come from her side, and maybe some of the stuff that she learned from me that has helped her. So Beth, I know you have a few questions for me. Why don't you take it away? Hopefully I've given you a chance to recover from all of our tech hiccups.
Yes, thank you so much, Bree. And it is just an honor and a privilege to interview this morning. And I had to laugh to myself as we're talking, as you'll be talking about overcoming fear and lack of self-confidence in artists. And then, my computer wasn't working all of a sudden when it's time to do this. So this is just the kind of thing, that happens to me a lot of times. And it can shake your confidence. But I was really impressed. I mean, I've been very impressed with you, Bree, all along. But I think it would be really helpful to everyone tuned in today just to learn more about you as an artist. I remember when I joined the female indie musician community, I really had no idea that you were a musician and just a very talented musician and vocalist. And So I think you posted something on your Facebook, a video clip of you singing, and I commented to you, and I was just like, wow, like you're incredible. And then I started researching you and just found out, about your talent. And then recently you did a blog for Bandzoogle and asked me if I would review that and just give suggestions. And I had absolutely no suggestions because it was amazing. So I guess the biggest question I have for you is, could you share with us a little bit about your artist journey and some obstacles that you overcame as an artist, or that maybe some fears that you had?
Sure. So, I mean, this actually all kind of came to fruition because I was recently on a radio show, LA Talk Radio, and it's been a while since I've really done anything as an artist like that and talked about my artist experience, just because I'm so focused on helping you guys. But it is good to know that I am an artist. So, and even though I don't perform a ton right now, I still do perform occasionally, and I still have tons of experience of being in the trenches like you guys are now. So my experience, started, I was always a singer, as many of you have been, always loved music. I really got heavily involved in high school in choirs, and it got me the chance to get out there and start performing as a soloist and stuff. And that gave me a lot of confidence. There was one particular time when I was in high school and I think I put this in a blog somewhere, when we performed in front of this huge room full of Marines in San Diego, and it was crazy because these Marines are like, they're going crazy, they're like super loud. And at the end of the show, I had this solo where you like go out in the front of the stage, you're in spotlight, it's really quiet, and and all this. And so they were going crazy through the whole show like this. And then when I came out to do my thing, I was like petrified, because there's all these guys, and they were making cat calls and all these things. And I go out there to the front of the stage, and the song, is really quiet and beautiful. It's a piano and everything. And they were still kind of going crazy. But as soon as I started to sing, they stopped. And that's kind of the first time I remember like having confidence on stage that like I can move an audience. And so that, I think that really like pushed me through all those years when I didn't have an audience and I didn't know how to get myself out there. But the biggest one, and I've talked about this a lot in different places, but going to college and having a degree in music, and then leaving school and having absolutely no clue what to do. I remember, I just got engaged after college, and we moved down to Orange County, and my husband was going, getting his doctorate at UC Irvine. And so I didn't have a job yet, and I was really wanting to do stuff in music, but I didn't know how. And I remember just like sitting in our apartment, like way before Google and stuff, but basically doing the best I could to like find resources to like, how can I do music in this place that I don't know anyone? I had no contacts in Orange County. I didn't know anybody. And I just felt completely lost. And I had no community. I didn't know any other musicians. And there was no like online community back then. So, because this is in the mid 90s. And so I was just like really lost for a long time. And I was grasping at straws, answering ads on the recycler, and, trying to put myself in these positions where, someone else has this music opportunity and I can just fit into it. And so many times, like, when you talk to people on the recycler, you don't know what they're like. And I had many experiences of people just completely flaking out. And, there was one band that I was in where it was all guys and me, and I was the lead singer, and I just really didn't fit in with them personality wise. And in 1999, my grandpa died. And so I said, well, I can't be at band practice because I have to go to the funeral. And I went up to Northern California for the funeral, and I came back and I didn't hear anything from them. And the next week, band practice, I showed up No one was there. Like we used to
goodness.
do it in this guy's like business, in the back of his business, and it was totally dark. The doors were locked. No one was there. And I never heard from them again. I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh, Bree.
I guess
Wow.
that's a sign that I don't belong with this band.
Oh, wow. Well, I appreciate you sharing things like this, because I think all of us face, these like supposedly they feel like crushing moments, and you could have easily like given up and said, wow, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but you didn't. And so that was just one thing that you went through. So can you share, I guess, some more about, I guess I know you have the degree, you have a double degree. It's incredible. You have a degree in business and in music, concentration in finance and accounting. I guess one thing that really impressed me, I know that you've had some other obstacles that you've overcome with your music career, as far as even some health type issues. I hope I'm not jumping in too soon on that. I know, but could you just share a little bit about that and how you've overcome that, or how you're dealing with those things?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I told you, like, pretty much anything is fair game.
Okay.
So I did say except my sex life. So
yeah,
and she was fine with that.
There.
Yeah, we won't go there. But as far as my health issues, I mean, I have dealt with visual issues as I've been, ever since birth. I've had vision that's not as good as other people, and so that's always been something that's been a difficulty and something that could have held me back. As well, like when I was 30, I developed Crohn's disease, and that was, it was just another thing to add to the pile of frustrations. Right before I started having kids, I found out that I had Crohn's disease, and it's the kind of thing, it's an inflammatory bowel disease, and it's the kind of thing that can really, really hold you back if you let it. You can be basically housebound, and I was hospitalized several times during that period. But the thing is that is what really was the catalyst for me, because it was like that thing that pushed me over the edge and said, like, look, there's a chance that you could be suffering from this disease for the rest of your life. And what if you could never go out and work again? What if you could never, do anything that you're doing now? Because I was working full time at the opera then. And I thought to myself, okay, well, then if I've only got so much time left, then what do I really want to do with my life and my career? And of course, music was the thing that just kept coming to me, even though at this point I'd had so many failed band experiences and so many, duos and trios and things that didn't work out and things that I tried. I hadn't tried being a solo performer yet. And that day in the hospital, I said to myself, you know what, this is the one thing that I haven't done. Like, I haven't gone out on a limb and really, really put myself out there. And at this point, I almost have nothing to lose. So why not do it? And that's what really gave me the push after I got out of the hospital. That was when I started down this path of, I'm going to start booking myself. I'm going to record. I'm going to do all of those things that I hadn't done before, because I was being held back by fear and all these mental blocks of I'm not good enough on my own.
That's just really amazing, Bree. Did you also write a song that came out of that? I mean, you probably wrote a lot of songs, but it seemed like I remember reading about your experience.
I did. It ended up being the lead track for my Healing Waters album, and I was written in the hospital, and it's just one of those things where it's like do or die. So that was kind of where I was like, I need this healing. And if I, recover from this, then I'm focusing my life on music and my career and talking to others about the struggles that I've been through and encouraging them. And that was kind of what my whole music career was based around, is encouraging people. And it's interesting, Beth and I have had these conversations because that's kind of what she does as well. But I was out there encouraging people and giving them confidence and helping them push through fears while I was doing it myself. It's not like I was past all of it while this was going on. I still had several bouts of Crohn's disease and ended up back in the hospital a couple of times while I was performing. I had my second pregnancy while my schedule was completely full. And I had booked out like the entire year without knowing I was pregnant, and then I just remember like driving around Northern California being sick as a dog trying to get to my next performance because I had booked these and like I'd worked really hard to build up this roster of bookings. And, it had started to be much easier than it was in the beginning. And I didn't want to lose that. And I didn't want to lose any of those. So, I just pushed through it.
Sure. Well, you're really a remarkable person and you're an inspiration to so many. And I love how you were able to do that, like to take something that was really hard for you and to turn that into something that it didn't keep you from pursuing your passion and your dream, but it seems like that's what fueled it even further. Like you said, like you were in the hospital and you realized, what if you only have a certain amount of time left? So I really admire you. And I think there's many of us who are listening, who will be listening to this podcast, who are going through struggles right now.
Yeah, I see some people saying, and Michelle says she can relate.
Okay.
And Jesse says, yep, yes, I see a lot of yeses in here. That's awesome.
Okay, well, great. I think, even for me, like sometimes I'll find myself waiting until all these trials and all these things are done. But just even hearing you say that you were out there doing it in the midst of it.
Yeah, pretty much there is no done. I've decided. Because as soon as you feel like you've gotten through something else, and with the timeline of life, pretty soon it's going to be, okay, my aging parents, I have to deal with that issue. And I know Beth is dealing with that right now.
Yes.
There's going to be, and then it's going to be my kids in college or my kids getting married or whatever it is. There's always going to be some trial that's going to be holding you back from doing music, or you're going to think, well, I'm so busy with this thing. That's kind of one reason I did this post about having a day job. And I've tried to make it clear that like, it's not just about the physical day job. Like many of us, when I first started, my day job was taking care of my 2-year-old. And that was like a full-time job for me because I was a new mom, and I was also working on the side, still working for the opera part-time. And so I did basically have a full-time job, and I could have easily said, well, once my child goes to school, and then I'd have another child, and I'd be like, okay, once that child goes to school, well, pretty soon I'd be, that now we'd be up to only a couple of years ago. My second child went to kindergarten 3 years ago. So I could have easily been putting it off and rationalizing it. And I think we just have to get over that hump.
Right. And you're such a great role model for many of us. I know, I look at your journey and mine, and we've had some similarities, and you helped me develop a signature concert, for my Clear Vision album. And then you had a program called You Are My Vision. And anyway, but you have a beautiful voice, you're very talented. And I just want to let the listeners know too, I was researching you a little bit. I don't want to embarrass you, but you were named Best Female Performer at the Inland Empire Music Awards in Southern California.
Okay, let me just show you. This is the cheesy award that I got. It's right there on the wall. It is like the cheesiest looking award, but it was cool to win it. You got to put it on your bio. That's the best part.
Oh, sure. And you have just that your stage presence, it says you have powerful vocals and commanding stage presence, have captured audiences at large venues such as Saddleback Church, also the Dodger Stadium, which a lot of people know about that. But your style's been compared to Jenny Owens, Sarah Groves, Mark Schultz, Casting Crowns. But you have just a beautiful voice. And I'm going to put a plug in for you because there's an opening coming up. I think it's that next Wednesday, Bree, that your music, one of your songs, will be playing on the podcast.
Yes, my mom is always like, why don't you put your own music on your podcast? And I usually do in the holiday season because I have a full album of holiday music. But
Mhm.
Because I did this radio show the other day and they were playing my music on the radio show, and I got such a great reaction to it. It's like, yeah, I really should at least get my music out there sometimes. It's kind of weird to put it on your own show, but every once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's great. I heard that interview, the LA Talk Radio interview, and that was excellent. I guess I'm wondering, like the mental blocks and self-confidence issues that you had, can you describe maybe some of the fears or some of the ways you felt, and that you're comfortable sharing that the audience members might be able to relate to?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is just being alone on a stage. Like, I just felt really uncomfortable with that idea. And even though, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I guess I did I think it's different because I was a classical soloist. So when I did classical solos, I felt totally comfortable on the stage. But when I was singing like contemporary music, I was so used to performing with a band because I did that in college. I performed with an a cappella group. We had a band as well. We did contemporary music and performed all around the Western states. And I was totally used to that. But carrying the whole show myself, like, I just felt like I wasn't enough. And I think a lot of artists deal with that because sometimes maybe people will make comments like, it's just you and your guitar, it's just you and your piano, like it's not very entertaining. But we as a solo artist can be entertaining. We just have to think these things out. We have to plan out, the whole Tom Jackson idea of moments and variety within your show and moving on purpose and, making it visually interesting. Like, once I actually dove into Tom Jackson's method, that really helped me a lot. And I felt more confident being alone on stage. But that was a big one.
That's great. He's super. I heard him, saw him, and saw him down in Nashville at a conference, and applied a lot of what he says, and it's true. And it's interesting because that was one of your big fears, but I guess you worked on that, and that, as I read things about you, that's like one of your strengths, is that you really do command, you have a commanding presence and just are very comfortable sharing who you are. You don't pretend to be anybody else. And maybe that's something that a lot of us struggle with, is just being comfortable in our own skin, even today, I'm like looking, I have, it looks like everything's all perfect here in my house, but I had something fall off of the counter a while ago and it like smashed this glass. I know it was our blender. Like, that's never happened. We have ceramic tile, and my husband's been making like these healthy shakes. So, but anyway, I was like, so we live in an imperfect world, and there's, life happens, things are difficult, and just learning to be comfortable with who we are, with our struggles or trials, our flaws, and our strengths, and, developing our strengths. So, can you share with us, as far as confidence, have you always been a confident person, or is that something that you've developed over time?
I have had to really be confident from a young age because of having, more difficulty, visual difficulty than other people. I had to have the confidence to say to the teacher, like, I need to sit in the front, or I can't read the board, or whatever. In college, I had to say to my accounting teacher, like, I need to take my test in a separate area because this room is too dark, or whatever it is, and so that's kind of where I had to develop it. But that was another thing I was thinking of, is like, I did try to be somebody else on stage because I thought, well, at least on stage, maybe people won't even know about that. And I can be a totally different person and I won't have to deal with that issue. And so that was one reason I think I would try to like be in all these bands. And, I did a blog post about when I was in this one band, and it was like this alternative rock band, which is totally not my style, right? I can do it, but it's not really my thing. I mean, I'm a classically trained vocalist, and to be singing like, like somebody like Pearl Jam or something, it like doesn't make any sense, right? But that was this band, and I got talked into it, and it looked like a great opportunity and all that. And I look at the pictures of myself that we took from our photo shoot, and I'm like, this is so not me. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But I was so, afraid to be authentic and myself. And I think that was the big shift when I finally went into my solo career. And it took me time to develop this. I did not have it right away. But breaking down that wall between me and the audience, that was a huge thing, and that's one reason I'm such a huge proponent of house concerts and things like that, because I think that is just such an amazing experience when you've got that give and take with the artist. And that's what I try to create. I mean, I like to perform at smaller venues of 100 people or less, but even if I'm in a bigger place, I try to create that feeling of give and take, and that there's a wall between me and them, because then, and it took me a while. At first I thought, I need to have this stage persona, and I need to be like aloof, and, and they need to be in awe of me like I'm a rock star, which is so ridiculous. Did I really think that? I don't know if I really thought that exactly, but, I had these ideas in my mind of what performers were. And I thought to myself, well, I can't seem exactly like them, because then they won't respect me as a performer. And what I learned over time is that if I go out and mingle with the audience and talk to them before I get on the stage, and they see me as a real person, then they react so much better to me on the stage than feeling like there's this us and them mentality.
Yeah, well, that's great, Bree. Thanks for sharing that, because you are so authentic, and I think that's one thing that really brought me to your indie group and the academy. And so just to hear, how that maybe was a struggle for you, I think that's encouraging to me. I'm sure it's encouraging to a lot of ladies, a lot of people listening today, just to become comfortable with who they are. And
and when you do that, you do have to have the confidence to be okay when there are the occasional haters or the occasional snide comments or whatever, about you, because it will happen. Like, if you put yourself out there, it will happen. But, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have the, internal strength to handle that. And I mean, I remember when I released my first CD, and my mom took it to the local radio station in her town that I had grown up listening to. And nice. I was like, I haven't heard from them. And my mom called them up, and the DJ guy was like, oh, no, we're not going to play it. She doesn't really have a good voice. And my mom's like, okay, of all the things that you could say, that doesn't even make any sense, because that is nothing that I've ever heard. Everybody says I have a good voice. Maybe they don't like my style, or, they didn't think the production was current enough, or whatever. There could be all kinds of reasons, but that's a stupid reason. So then it bothered me for a while, but then I was like, you know what? That's 999% people say that I do have a good voice, and this one person, why am I listening to him? It's stupid. I think he probably didn't even listen to it. He just wanted a reason to blow her off,
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's a great example, and I'm sure we can all relate to that too. But it seems to be human nature. My husband's a teacher, and everybody's behaving in the class except one child. And it's easy to focus on that one, and then let that, But sounds like you've just learned to be resilient, and even to be an advocate for yourself based on some challenges that you've had with health issues, and the low vision you described. I think it's just very inspiring to me. I'm wondering if there's any questions. For some reason, my video is frozen.
Oh, just reload your page. If you right click on the page and go to reload, and then, but I do that too. The video gets frozen, so I just revamped. So Jesse says, let's see. Do you have a bigger hit band for next time? Wait. Okay, I think she may not be talking to me, but let's see.
Okay. So Bree,
just kind of looking. I just want to say hi. I mean, Carlene, it's so great to see you. I'm glad you survived the hurricane. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Michelle, Laura, great to see you. Jesse, Ingrid,
Crystal Elkins,
Thank you guys for showing up. Molly, so awesome to see you. Let's see.
Yeah, Lisa Dean Wegener. Yeah, Lisa's here.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Awesome. Now, Bree, mine says when I right click it, it just says play, unmute, or show video.
Oh, no, I mean like
URL.
right click out on the left side of the page where there's nothing there and tell it to reload your page.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So
I got you.
Molly says, like, why is it that we forget all the beautiful things that people say to us and remember that one terrible thing? And it's so true. It is so hard. That is probably, I think, as an artist, the most difficult thing to get over. Because we always focus on the one negative thing, even though we're getting so many great compliments and comments.
Right. Well, I think that's one thing that makes this group so awesome, to have the female indie musician community, because you find that you're not alone. I mean, there's encouragement for one another. And I think it's great. I mean, it's been helpful to me, and I just love the sense of community there. And then to take that even a step further, in the academy that Bree, that you've built, just like you built the indie community, that there really is a sense of encouragement and supporting one another. And
yeah, I mean, that was my whole goal, because that's what I didn't have back then and wish I had had. So, I mean, that's really, I created a group that was for me back, 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, it's great. Now my video thing is loading still. I can see you in the top corner, but I'm hoping.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I'm just looking to see if there's not a lot of questions in here, but.
Yeah, I guess another thing I was really impressed with too, just with your what you shared with Dan Zugel. I mean, you were a stay-at-home mom with a 2-year-old daughter when you were, doing that. But it just seems like you really figured out how to make the most of your time, and that's something I've noticed about you. You're very organized and very. But anyway, I don't know.
I mean, I've kind of focused on that lately, because I feel like not a lot of people in the music space are talking about that, and I think it really makes all the difference of creating a way of being productive, but not feeling like under pressure by it. That's the hard part, because if we may create this like huge long to-do list, but then we constantly feel guilty because we're not doing it. So finding ways, as I talk about in the academy and my courses, of parsing that out and relating it to goals, and setting up your action steps, and each day knowing exactly what you need to do to move forward, but not overwhelming yourself with too many things. I always say, like, pick 3 things that you can do each day. And if you only have like an hour to spend on music, pick one thing, but then you'll feel accomplished. I mean, I was working on a project on Monday, and I knew I wasn't going to finish it, but I was like, I feel accomplished because I spent 3 hours working on this thing, and I'm so much further to finishing it than I was going to be if I hadn't worked on it, even though I couldn't finish it. Whereas this project's been like hanging over me for months, whereas I could have finished a bunch of other things, but I wouldn't have felt as accomplished as making a stride toward this like bigger goal that I wanted. It was really important to me. So I mean, it's about figuring out what works for you. It really has to be personalized to the way you work, the way your family is and your situation is, whether you work full-time or not. And you've got to figure out when your productivity time is, because for me it's the morning, but for other people it's night. For some people it's during their lunch hour. Like, you have to figure out what works for you and take advantage of that. Even now, like when I do this full time, I'm constantly thinking I don't have enough time to do what I want to do. I've got, a million more ideas than I can execute. We all experience that on some level. So, don't get discouraged. Just try to figure out what time of day is your best time to work on music and set that aside.
That's great advice. And Bree, I see a couple comments too. Michelle Murray says, and comparing ourselves to others can also mess with our confidence. Anyone else relate? And I I can, I think when I started out, because I started out by recording my album in Nashville, and all of a sudden, boom, I was just out there, and then, but didn't feel like I really knew exactly what I was. I mean, I knew music, but getting myself out there was hard, and so I started looking at people that were way further along with a lot of things. And maybe not giving myself enough credit, for life experiences and the things that I had to offer. So comparison just is a trap that I don't know that anybody wins. So
I think that's important to compare yourself to somebody that you can actually compete against. Like, when you just started and you have this awesome album, but you don't have any experience in marketing, you don't have any experience in booking, all that. You need to compare yourself to somebody who's booking themselves very locally, in places that you feel like you could handle. Don't compare yourself to somebody that's already doing tours and, performing in a whole bunch of big venues and, their songs all over the radio like that. You're just going to set yourself up for defeat. And that's really how I started, was comparing myself to local people that were doing what I wanted to do, and following in their footsteps and seeing if I could do it at least as well as they did, if not better. But not trying to compare myself to the big names and the people in the industry. I mean, we are outside of the music industry, most of us. We make our own industry, and we can't compare ourselves to people in the industry because they've got all this big money behind them and all this marketing machine and all that stuff. It's just us and our laptop or whatever. So, we need to be fair to ourselves and learn as much as we can and set the bar where we can actually, not set it low, but set it high, but high within our sphere.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves too. I think as women, we can tend to be harder on ourselves. I don't know if that's your experience, Bree, but, and if we can't find someone local to look up to, to go further, around us. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, find someone that you like what they're doing, that, you can form a relationship with as a for them to be a mentor, and that they're doing what you want to do. And if they're doing it well, and so comparing ourselves to people that have nothing to do with us, or just, that it's just not ever productive. And Carlene here says, I think artists are incredibly sensitive people in general. And I would agree with that. That's what makes us great songwriters, So it's interesting because we have to balance that sensitive side with the tough, the business side. One other comment I have is just we can sometimes feel like the grass is always greener on the other side. When you talked about us being outside of the industry as indie artists, the grass, as you talk to people in that industry or whatever industry, it's not always greener. I mean, everybody has challenges. So,
and I talked to plenty of people on the podcast that have been in the industry and left it behind because it was definitely not greener. So,
right. And so, and there are challenges, no matter what we deal with. I'm just wondering, here's another comment. Michelle says 50 is not too old to build an online fan base.
Don't think so. There's tons of people online, especially on Facebook. There's tons of people that are in your target market. And I'm sure, Carlene can attest to this because she's chosen, her target market is baby boomers because that's the kind of music that she does. And they're out there. Like, people are coming to her shows and joining her email list.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, there's quite a few ladies in our community in their 40s and 50s. I know Jennifer McGill Bohannon just did the thing. She, released her first album at age 40. I just, released my first album at age 50. And so, I don't know, it's inspiring. And I'm seeing more women in the indie community are doing that. And I think that's an opportunity to help other women and to inspire them as we learn and grow. I'm just wondering, Bree, are there any, it's just looking at the time here, I don't want to
we've been on here quite a while. Is there any last closing question, or I think we've covered a lot?
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, ladies?
I
Or
do notice that, people are talking about things that I've talked about. Ingrid said, thank goodness we have an inspiration vault. And absolutely, that's what I teach. Like, we all have so many ideas swimming around in our heads, and to have a place to keep those until we're ready to do them instead of trying to do them all at once. That's something that I teach in my courses, is this idea of the inspiration vault. So definitely, like, don't let your millions of ideas derail you, because we all have millions of ideas because we're all creative people. So I just wanted to kind of close it by what you just mentioned about Jennifer. The most recent podcast that I released this week, if any of you guys haven't listened to it, and I know I sent out an email saying, like, it's possibly the best interview I've ever done. Like, she's just so inspiring, and on so many different levels, because she was kind of in the industry and then, was very disillusioned by it, and now having the opportunity to come back when she was 40 and release this album and go out and use her music to inspire people. I just think you guys will really be inspired by her. You will learn a lot from her journey and maybe see some of yourself in some of the stuff that she went through, because I know I did. So that was podcast episode number 113. And you can always find that at femmusician.com/113, or you can just go to femmusician.com and click on the podcast page, and you can see all the ones that we have there. But highly recommend that one for sure. So I want to thank everybody for showing up. I want to thank Beth for doing this interview and taking the time to, kind of do a little research on me and come up with some questions and deal with the tech issues and all that. Thank you guys for showing up, even though we started a little bit late. Boy, we were like down to the wire. I mean, we're texting back and forth. She's like, my computer's restarting, all the stuff that happens on these kinds of things. But thank you, Beth, for doing that. Thank you all for showing up. And as usual, this will be available as a podcast tomorrow. Or you can always go back and watch the replay if you missed any of it right here on Facebook. But if you just want to re-listen to any of this on your daily commute or when you're doing your laundry or whatever, just go to femmusician.com/114 tomorrow, and this podcast will be there for you. So have an amazing day, you guys. And I always want to remind you to continue making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. Have a great day.
Great.